Okay, let's move on to the main topic. So, the main topic of this show, which is, I know, old news at this point, but it's She-Hulk. So, I didn't get a chance to talk about this on Friday because I just was busy with other stuff and I didn't get a chance to do the live stream. So, She-Hulk season finale premiered last week on Thursday. And what are my thoughts on it? So I didn't hate it. I know there's some people who are very angry about it and the choices it made, and I'm not gonna say I don't see their point of view because I can see there are some definitely valid criticisms when it comes to the show. I mean, I was definitely one of those people with a lot of criticisms if you've seen my previous videos. So it's been a couple days since I've seen it. I haven't seen it again. I've only watched it the once, and I'm still pretty much okay with what happened in the finale. I don't know if it's because I just am not that as excited about the MCU anymore, or if it's just because She-Hulk is so different from everything else. The fourth wall break doesn't really bother me. I do feel I know She-Hulk is different than Deadpool, but I feel it's a little hypocritical for people to get so up in arms about She-Hulk breaking the fourth wall in such a drastic way, and then where I feel like they would be okay if Deadpool did it. You know, if Deadpool did this, obviously I think it would be a bit different because Deadpool would just kill the writers, and you'd have like a Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe type situation, which is what I think he does in the comics. You know, because he realizes he's in a comic and he kills everybody in the Marvel Universe, and then he like, I think he gets out and then he kills the writer or something like that. You know, it gets a little meta like that. So I think I feel like if Deadpool did that, people would be a lot more praise. There would be a lot more praise than this show gets. Now, to contrast that, I do feel that the fourth wall break doesn't quite work in the when you take the entire show in view. I feel like it doesn't necessarily they don't use it in the best service, even in this episode, because it kind of just resolves everything without doing anything. And that's a totally valid criticism that I've heard lobbed at this, is that, you know, you kind of set up these sort of conflicts. You know, obviously you could argue that maybe some of it wasn't very set up very well, but you're at least at this point where you have some conflict happening, and then Jen breaks the fourth wall and then just basically snaps her finger, or in this case just tells Kevin to fix everything, and now the conflict's over. And that didn't I didn't hate it, but at the same time I don't love it either. I mean, maybe it's because I just have had pretty much given up on the show at this point, so like I'm just okay with it doing that and just being over, because like whatever. You know, it's obviously not going to be the kind of show that I want it to be writing wise. I feel like I've said this before, that the writing of the show let me down, and it could have been written so much smarter than the way it was, and I feel like that's a disservice to the character. But no offense to the writers, of course. I think that they could have written, you know, just a smarter show. You know, I know it's easy to say that. Just write smarter. Don't you know what you're doing? Just write smart right. But there was just so many of these things in the show that felt like the lazy way to go about it, and that things like, I have to wonder, did they even get like an expert or a lawyer to consult? Because, you know, that's what a lot of these shows do, is they get a consultant or something like that. And a lot of the writing in this shows feels like nobody was consulting at all. They just made it up on their own from what they've seen of shows. And because you have to remember, those shows are not an accurate depiction, and so that's what it kind of feels like, a copy of a copy. So like what we're getting with the way the law and courthouses are shown in this show are kind of like a copy of what other better shows do, and it's just not as good. So yeah, in general, when it comes to this show, some of the things that held it back is, I'll just say the CGI. Now, I didn't hate the CGI the way some people do. I think they did a good job with what they had, but it's still not at the standard that works for fully realized CGI characters. Jen just looks stiff and awkward in her animations and so much of this. But you can see in shots where she's not as stiff. And then that's what really makes me think it's a budget thing. I mean, we already know that these CGI people are being pushed past the brink of what they're able to deliver on. And so I feel like we're not at the point to where they're able to deliver fully realized CGI characters on the small screen yet, to the ability where they're like a whole show is about them. You know, it did feel like there just were a lot of limitations on this. Even with She-Hulk only like on screen half the time at most. I feel like maybe more in some episodes, but I feel like they tried to split it pretty evenly. And yeah, the show didn't have enough. Well, I mean, it's not necessarily just about money, it's about time, but like it's not enough. You know, even Hulk looks like a downgrade. Now, compared to other TV shows, compared to what we have even just recently in the last couple years with, like, say, the CW, this is way better. This is like on another tier, but it's still a tier below the movies. And so I feel like there is sort of a disconnect there, especially when you are saying it's in the MCU, it's part of the same universe, but at the same time, it's like you can see this disconnect between the movie CGI and, you know, She-Hulk, and then, you know, CW, or really CW's like way down there. So yeah, I don't know what to think about this show, to be honest. I'm not going to watch it again. I can tell you that. I have no interest in rewatching this show. Maybe a couple episodes at most, but even that, I just I would describe it as disappointing. Personally, for me, it didn't disappoint me as much as Loki or Ms. Marvel. Loki, because I felt like just from the trailers, it had a great premise, an interesting character, and I was interested in seeing what they would do with it, and it just totally let me down after like the second episode. And then Ms. Marvel, similar thing, was not as excited for the premise, but like the first two episodes I felt were so good, and then episode 3 they kind of went in this totally different direction of, or maybe it was the end of episode 3. It's whenever the character left the US and then it kind of went totally off the rail, and then I felt like the last episode was just terribly written. And so I do put She-Hulk a little bit above that, maybe because I just wasn't expecting as much. Maybe I'm just kind of getting over these Disney Plus Marvel shows. And then I would say I still put it below Moon Knight. Moon Knight also still had some of the same issues as like Ms. Marvel, where I really liked the first couple episodes, and then it started not Actually, I would say I still liked overall Moon Knight more than Ms. Marvel. I just felt like the ending was a little anticlimactic. And it didn't really felt like it ended. It felt like this is the middle of the season and now there should be like 6 more episodes. But then, you know, there isn't. And then they keep saying, oh, well, we don't have any more plans. So, She-Hulk. Would I want a season 2? I'd watch it if they came out with it, but I'm not that interested in seeing it. Nor am I that excited about like seeing, wanting to see She-Hulk in a new show. And then them introducing Scar, Hulk's son, totally weird way to do it. I mean, I don't think anyone, I haven't seen anyone get excited about the way they introduced Scar. It's such a weird, here's my son. Yay. I mean, I haven't seen anybody say that was a good way to introduce that character. And on top of that, I'm not really interested in another Hulk. Like, what is this? I don't know the character from the comics other than he's the son of Hulk. So what does this character have to introduce? What does this character bring? Nothing about that or any of that is hinted in this scene that where he's introduced. And it's just like the most boring way to introduce a character. Is just like, what if just Hulk comes and says, hey, this is my son, this is what I've been doing when I wasn't on the show. That's so uninteresting. It's like they took the most uninteresting possibility and said, let's do that. Or was it some like kind of requirement? It's like, oh, by the way, we need you to introduce, Hulk needs to introduce his son Scar at some point in the show, so you know, do that. And they're just like, I don't know how to fit that in. Just throw him in there at the end, you know. Hulk walks in and says, hey everybody, this is my son. I don't know. I just think it was not well thought out. And I don't really have a problem with the look of the character of Scar. Is that how you say his name? I don't even know. Scar? Either way, it's not that exciting. And yeah, I'm not that excited to see Hulk again either. Unlike a lot of people, I'm not rooting for Hulk to come back as Savage Hulk. I feel like the direction they've taken him, and by making, you know, Smart Hulk, is I kind of actually hope they don't go back, because that's one of the things in the comics that with these characters is they're never really allowed to progress and change because they always have to go back to status quo. So to me, bringing back Savage Hulk would be like going back to the status quo. So I would rather just keep with this Smart Hulk. I would just like him, you know, to do something interesting, because he hasn't, and this show was not something interesting. And like I've talked about before, I feel like it was not the show that we were pitched. So yeah, that's She-Hulk. Let me know what you thought in the comments if you're watching now, or if you're watching in the segmented video. Feel free to let me know what you thought about the season. Are you excited for I was gonna say you're excited for season 2. They haven't announced a season 2. Would you be excited if they announced a season 2? Let me know what you thought, and I'll see you in the next video.